Believe it or not, continuing a little bit, I wanted to encourage, if I might, everyone to try and get some sort of grip on the operational fact that we were mentioning, that without enthusiasm, the secondary world, that in the relative sense that we've been mapping it, that is a secondary world, a world of non-essentials, in the sense of actually just staying minimally alive, that without enthusiasm, this world cannot breathe and cannot develop, as opposed to what would be, operationally, if they could be divided, the primary world, wherein enthusiasm is not a requirement. It is perhaps, we'll see, interesting in several ways that I did not get around to mentioning last time, besides the kinds of what should be obvious once you get a grip on the map idea. Besides the fact that a lion does not have to get enthusiastic about eating, that it would, in fact, if a lion could be enthusiastic about eating or humping, it would be self-defeating. It would be taking away the maximum efficiency. But in the secondary world, in the areas I'll bet that you haven't thought of, besides the general operational fact that the secondary world must be fed by human enthusiasm or it would wither, it would not develop. But in specific, within that wide context, how about this? How about possessions? Now, possessions also, we might point out, should be differentiated if you're going to look in a certain way from, let's call them goods. Just possessions are what shopping's about. And goods would be primary stuff. That since you live in conditions that are complex enough now that, as far as I know, none of you are farmers, that you actually, instead of going out and farming, you go out and do other kinds of activities. You expend energy, which they swap for the markers known as moolah, and then you take the bread and you swap it at the grocery store for food instead of growing it. But let's just call those goods. And let's call that process buying. There is a distinct difference between that, and everyone knows the kind of jokes that are made about shopping nowadays. You know, bumper stickers of shop till you drop, and little buttons I've seen that say something like, when I get upset, I don't see a psychiatrist, I go shopping. Shopping has to do, in this sense, if you're following the little sidestep, shopping is to the secondary world as buying would be to the primary. That is to farming. That is to actually having to go and buy something, such as food, actually having to go pay your mortgage on your house, since you don't go out and build a house every day out of froms, or you don't go and dig out a hole in the side of a mountain. Then that part of your primary existence is taken care of again through the secondary, in the secondary world, through the use of money. Keeping track of you swapping your efforts for somebody else's effort, the carpenters and who built the house and the bankers who would, I was going to talk about people that do honest labor, but at any rate, you understand. But shopping is tied to possessions. Now possessions, I didn't lose you all, did I? Possessions I am differentiating from necessities, goods, but we can call them necessities if you want to also. As opposed to food, and as opposed to actually buying clothes to stay warm, possessions would be to go buy clothes that you do not actually need to survive. That you've got enough coats, you've got enough shoes, you've got enough socks, and etc., that you are prepared for the elements as they come about in the latitudes of the world in which you might reside. But beyond that, anything you get from shopping. And so possessions play a large part. Forget any kind of crude idea of the little offshoots of life's body that on a hectare the rest of humanity about being involved with possessions and tied up in worldly goods. Save that for the Southern Baptist. That is outdated. Possessions are very important. Were it not for possessions, what would most people be doing, at least in this part of the world? As long as you're not driven by primary needs, as long as the majority of your time, or a large part of your time, that is your effort, is not taken up with actually having to get out there and schluck it enough to get money to eat, that you're just living hand to mouth. We'll assume you're not. After that, what do? You shop. Whether you call it that or not. Forget men making crude jokes about their wives going out and hanging around the damn mall all day. Of course, you hear guys saying that, and they're staying at the counter over there at Pep Boys or Nationwide Auto looking at tools. Buying, the 114th wrench they have. Which I'll admit, when you need a certain wrench, by God, you need it. But then they laugh at women buying all those clothes. All right, possessions are very important. Possessions are a representation. Now, again, I'm differentiating that from essentials. Possessions of all kinds. Possessions are a reflection of hobby. Possessions are the outcome of shopping. Possessions are the unique aspect, one of the unique aspects of the goods in the secondary world of man. But now about possessions, rather than being an appropriate target for an attack, possessions are very important. And there is a aspect that I was going to see if you couldn't see connected with this, that possessions are not completely fulfilling their role and their responsibility if they do not enthuse their owner. Do I have to say think about it? Yeah. Well, you have been through this all of your life, except you looked at it in the same way that we were talking last time, that people believe that they are frightened of or that they have objection to their neighbors, some other nation or city's politics or religion. It's not that. And that's why that there are different religions and politics and political systems, is because it enthuses what appears to be neighbors, opponents, potential foes. But consider this into possessions. The ordinary mind, the example I was going to give, that everyone's been through more than once. The ordinary mind, ordinary intelligence, looks in the wrong place again. How many times have you looked at clothes or an automobile, but let's say something that's reasonable that you could just purchase, tried it on or held it up, or a record album, whatever, and thought, boy, I like that. I've always wanted that, or you heard about it, or somebody recommended it, and you bought it. An output, partially, of your primary existence that you sweated somewhere in some kind of job to get this money that you gave to somebody else. And you took the possession home. And let's say you put on the suit or the dress, or you put on the tape, or you began to read the book that was so highly recommended. And that when you bought the book, there it was, it's number one on the bestseller, and there's this big old display there in the store, and it's somebody that perhaps you think is entertaining to you, Andy Rooney or somebody hollering, this is my favorite book, you cut out of him. And you think, wow. And it says, one of the great novels of this decade. Wow. And there you are, just out shopping. Shopping now. Not out buying essentials, just out kind of, you might say, intellectually gnashing about in the mall. But you go, wow, so you buy it. You pay $19.95 and you go home, put on the dress, put on the tape, the record, sit there and start to read the book, and you wish you hadn't bought it. I mean, you look at the dress or the suit, and you think, well, or you listen to the tape, or you notice you're not listening to it, you're wondering, and you wish you hadn't bought it. You, ordinary intelligence, lays the blame on the dress. Well, it doesn't look, it doesn't fit like I thought it would fit. Or I used to like that group, but boy, this tape sucks. What happened to them? Or I would have thought something in Andy Rooney said was a great book, but gee, this is what's lacking. Possessions are not fulfilling their rightful role as a possession to a real person. And remember, a real person, last time, we got to back up a little if you want to, that a person in the secondary sense, a man with a small limb, is not fulfilling his complete role as a human if he is not enthusiastic over a wide span of activities, a large part of his life, his waking hours. If he's not enthusiastic, he is not maximally fulfilling his responsibility as a man. But you can go on down the line. A man's possessions have responsibilities. And if your possessions, a particular one, possessions in general, do not enthuse you, they are not fulfilling the real definition, the real function of a possession. And it's not just the fault of the book or the dress or the suit. It is the interplay. You are dancing with your possessions because you're always dancing with the secondary world. And it's not just that the book's no good. It's not just that this doesn't look as good on me as it did the sales guy that had it on. The enthusiasm is not there because that is the job of possessions. Remember, we're talking about non-essentials, that you could live without it. But if you're not going to live without it, which nowadays you're not supposed to, you're supposed to have some sort of little penny-ante hobby of some kind, or else you're sitting at home staring at your toenails. But whatever it is supposed to be conducive to enthusiasm, which is, of course, conducive to the circulation of energy in life. Since I mentioned the cutout of Andy Rooney, etc., how about advertising itself? When it is maximally, when it is optimally operational, fruitful, successful, what is advertising but enthusiasm? What is it? Of all natures. They give out awards every year, and there are whole magazines and societies devoted to the advertising trade, in the advertising profession. And as I said, they have awards, and I'm sure that you've been a party, as ordinary people are, of seeing an ad on TV or something in print, and you comment, or somebody comments to you about, boy, have you seen so-and-so? Wasn't that a neat campaign or neat ad? And yeah. Not questioning any artistic, creative, blah, blah, blah involved. But what is advertising? It's enthusiasm! Now you think, or you might if you're ordinary, think, well, now if we're going to analyze it, which people do, there's people without any doubt that has received their doctoral degrees in analyzing advertising. But what is it? It's enthusiasm. And beyond just books and tapes and clothes, how about the apostolizing, the promotion of religions, philosophies? But say religions, that's the one that historically is still going on. The promotion of religion is not done on the grounds of any merit it has. It's simply on the basis of enthusiasm, which those that are at the receiving end of some attempted promotion of a particular religion, in the full sense, cults and everything else, is one of the reasons that they rail against it and say that they should, stop all these people hanging around the airports, or I don't want somebody knocking on my door that's riding a bicycle, and celebrates God's Day on Tuesday afternoon or some weird stuff. But what is it that they are resisting? It's not the merit or the lack of merit of the religion. It's they're resisting the enthusiasm. And conversely, sort of, what is it that they're out now sending out? They're messengers of goodwill, all the religions from the Catholics on down, sideways. I guess all except the Episcopalians, because trying to apostolicize in some cases can cause you to sweat, and as we all know, Presbyterians do not sweat. But at any rate, all the rest of them, just about, at least in the Protestant side of religion, they're out in Africa, Asia, New Guinea. I even hear there's some in Toledo, but it's a rumor. They're out promoting the religion, telling the people, these poor, backward people, they're still out worshiping frogs and rivers. It's no, you should be worshiping Jesus. And then they give them the more rational story about this guy that was born to a virgin and then died and then not died. And they're right, and so that these poor, backward people can go, oh, Mamma mia, thank you for opening our eyes. The reason I went through that little humor is what I said, the promotion of religion is advertising, whether you ever thought about it. But the promotion is not done on the grounds of some merit, some value, some reason, some enlightenment that the religion has. What is the whole basis of any apostolization, any advertising, any promotion, all the way from a new car to a soap powder to a religion? It's enthusiasm. That's it. I just thought I'd mention that. Oh, I just did. All right. Also, maybe some of you have already considered it, but what are all forms of entertainment, including sports? I guess nowadays in our part of the world, but all entertainment. What is it? Well, for one thing, it's not entertainment if it does not provoke enthusiasm. In the same way, you can leave, if you're ordinary, you can leave a concert, you could leave a new gallery showing, you could leave a debate, you could leave any form of entertainment or a game. If you leave and you're not enthused, more so than you were when you went in, and you do not, without any analyzation, you do not connect the enthusiasm with what you were just confronted with, then you were not properly entertained. Now, ordinary intellect may say, well, Jesus, it's hard to believe, I guess even Judith Priest or Lionel Richie can have an off night, but damn, 1995 for that. Now, sure enough, the guy may have had a bad night. He might have had Las Vegas throat. The symphony, half of them could have been hungover, jet lagged. Now, it may be true. That's not the point, though. But you, whatever the individual that we're referring to, you were not properly entertained if you were not injected with enthusiasm. You see, ordinary intelligence, if I said, why in the world would you go out and pay whatever money to go out and hear somebody? You can stay home and turn your radio, and they'll finally play their record tonight sometime. You can buy a book, or you can go to the library and get a book of the Impressionists. Why should you go and dress up and go down to pay for parking and go to the museum and to see, big deal, 30 of the Impressionist paintings they put together? You can go in the library and check out a book, and it's got 130, amongst other reasons. You go out to be entertained, not to hear somebody sing, not to see a painting, not to hear somebody give a lecture. You go out for one reason. I could describe it other ways, but we're getting very close to a reason. You go to be enthused. And if you do not get enthused by what happened, you were not properly entertained, and you're aware of it. Very likely you are even comment on it. And in the area of enthusiasm, since we mentioned it in passing last time, note life's ambivalence toward alcohol and drugs, which you would think, if you were thinking along such lines, would be a form of entertainment. Because those who like to drink, those who like drugs are all the same, but I know people still separate them, but those who like to do so do not do it because of psychological problems, blah, 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 blah. They do it for one simple reason. It's to be entertained. And we just established what entertained is, to be enthused. But life has a certain continuing ambivalence toward alcohol and drugs. All right, just for a second to start, at least you get distracted. Alcohol, for instance, the world's most popular drug, of course, literally, that is at the electrical chemical level, literally suppresses one part of the nervous system, but it does so that another area is more open to unusual enthusiasm. Well, all of you, I assume, have had a drink or you smoke pot, but with alcohol, if you care to drink at all, it not only depresses a part of the nervous system, it then routinely, for those who drink, it routinely seems to offer to open up that you get more enthused. You get more excited, you get to have more fun, as they call it, just using ordinary terminology. But that kind of drug-induced, that kind of alcohol-induced opening up of what appears to be, in many cases, a new kind of enthusiasm. I didn't lose everybody, did I? It's just you had a room full of ordinary people and you heard you measure the dB level of what's going on, you do know that if everybody in that room has 2 or 3 drinks, that the dB level is going to increase. Or you can walk by, and whether you like it or not, you could be a teetotaler. But you can walk by this room where these people are meeting, and now it's an hour later, and they've all had 2 or 3 good. And now it's like you might not even want to go in because you might say, well, they're getting rowdy. All you're saying is they're getting enthused. There's more energy in there. And you might not like it. That's not the point. We're not making any qualitative judgment about it, except I want you to see in a certain way life not only continues to produce alcohol and clues in men here and there that you could drink this stuff or in some way put it in your body. The way in which it simultaneously suppresses one part of the nervous system, and I just threw it in since some of you surely know that alcohol is considered to be a depressant, and I just wanted you to understand that it's not a direct shot at enthusiasm any more than you can be directly shot full of enthusiasm from a certain kind of music. You do not get the maximum effect unless you're in a position to be maximally exposed to the music, such as hearing it in person. But the thing about alcohol, I was going to point out, this kind of enthusiasm that it seems to open up for many, 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 many people, the questionable aspect wherein I base my note that life is continually ambivalent about it, is that this kind of enthusiasm is very narrow in its focus. It offers almost no variety, and it ends up, the narrowness of focus is like that you are Joe American from anywhere USA, and you're there, and you have a few drinks at the office party, and let's say that you're pretty taciturn normally, and now you've had a few drinks, you begin to kind of chat it up, and you're talking to people that you don't even normally talk to in other departments. But then you reach a level of this kind of drug-induced opening up, or you might say drug-induced enthusiasm, which is not really, but let's go ahead. But the enthusiasm almost immediately becomes narrowly focused, and it becomes enthusiasm that cuts down on variety, and the enthusiasm becomes like office party, and it becomes a kind of idée fixe suddenly, that you're just sexually enthralled with the boss's wife. And like for the rest of the evening, you're staying around after her, and you keep trying to talk to her, and you keep, that the enthusiasm does not offer any variety, that it reaches a certain point. And it's like a very, very sharp pinnacle, like getting up, and you get to the maximum of this apparent alcohol or drug-related enthusiasm, and you get right there, and you reach the apex, and it's good for maybe a couple of minutes if you're real lucky, and then it's all not just downhill in some moralistic sense, but then it becomes that your enthusiasm, even if it's still there, like you suddenly drunk enough and about to blow your whole career, like I have got to get into the her pants, the boss's wife, which you wouldn't even be about to do if you were sober. But the enthusiasm, instead of it offering a wider vista of variety, you become just focused on that one thing. Or if it's not that, somebody in accounting says, those reports you guys have been sending, and the guy's never spoke to you, but you've had a few drinks, and obviously he has, and he says something about, I've been aiming to tell you, the kind of reports you guys keep sending up the stairs, if I ever showed those to the boss, some of you guys would be out of here. Where'd you go to school? Where'd you get your diploma? By mail? And he walks off, and you have another drink, and you're getting kind of enthused and talking to people, and suddenly the rest of the night, just another example, instead of following the boss's wife around, the rest of the night, all you do is you keep looking around to see him, and all you do, you're over and over, is saying, get your diploma by mail, get your diploma. You gave yourself away, so you understand. But it is a kind of enthusiasm, and you may be even talking to yourself now like, as soon as I get the opportunity, I'm going to pull that guy in the bathroom, and he's going, I never have liked him. And in a sense, you are still more enthused in a certain way than you would be if it was there at the party and you had not had a drink. Except the enthusiasm does not open up and provide variety. That's why I'm saying that life seems to be ambivalent, because it keeps furnishing alcohol. It has not made humanity engage in any great form of alcoholic prohibition on a worldwide scale. But the kind of enthusiasm is too narrow. Now, any of you who want to, I wasn't going into it, but giving you an easy one to start with, some of you might then take a sidestep on your own and realize that the grand world of such things as religion, all sorts of philosophies, the sorts of things to which a person will align themselves, that they will join up and say, yes, I'm a card-carrying communist, Democrat, socialist, and the kinds of things that they might not physically do. That I'm a card-carrying German, I'm French, I'm Italian, I'm a Muslim, I'm an Arab. Life continues to do it. Life continues to go through certain changes. But notice, the world is still made up with very distinct, drawn lines, boundaries between countries, between races, between religions, between political ideologies, and blah, blah, blah. But life has a certain ambivalence about it. And it's not that far removed from alcohol, because notice, life is far back as when they drew the first line between two groups of people. And decided, yes, we're the Tigers and you people are the Euphrates. As soon as they did that, somebody on both camps, both sides, in a short period of time, as soon as they drew a line and said, all right, we're Polish and the rest of you people are Czechs. As soon as they did that, in each camp, at least one person went, you know, we've made a great mistake. That's foolish. We're all humans, and you go into that kind of thing. We should not have this. And, of course, all they had to do was draw the line, and within another short period of time, they're fighting over it. You understand that. That's what neighbors are for. They're potential opponents in the equation of eye plus not eye. That's what all not eyes are for, is potential people to kick around or to kick you around. Everybody knows that. But part of life's body, still, it makes humans draw a line and say, all right, we're French and you're German. We're Spanish and you people are Portuguese. Yeah. Well, you know. It's just a period of time and they're going to be into it. And you can say, on what basis? And in both camps, or an outside observer, but in both camps there are going to be some group of people that's going to say, you know what did it? I mean, they're hollering now about some political ideology, and they're hollering the Spanish have a closer tie to the orthodoxy of the Catholic Church, whereas the Portuguese, blah, blah, blah. Somebody, life will make some people, and both sides go, that's not really it. That doesn't make sense. You know, that's not going to hold up. That will not logically, you cannot logically carry that to an extreme. Of course, they're getting, without knowing it, what I was already trying to point out to you, because that's not the basis of it, is to create enthusiasm. But even within life itself, after it makes men draw boundaries and say, all right, we're Christians and you people are Jews. All right, and you people are Jews and you people are Muslims and you're Muslims and you're Hindus. As soon as it does that, it makes them on both sides begin to go, until I realized that those people were different. I never did like a few of those, and I didn't know why, but now I know why. It's because they're Hindu. I didn't know that. As soon as life does that, there's going to be problems. But there's also within both groups going to be people who say, we should have known that. Why didn't somebody ask me? We should have never done that. Do you hear me? That's not far removed from the ambivalence life has toward alcohol, because it produces an enthusiasm that never fails. All you got to do is divide any group of people. All right, you people are the reds and you people are the greens. Or figure out something that seems to make no sense. You people are the nylons and you people are the wolves. You know, forget everything. No more nationalities, no more religious differences, no more racial differences. But here it is. All of you people, just take some segment on any three-dimensional planet. You say, all right, you people over here, all of you people are now nylons. And everything that implies. Huh? And you, the rest of you over here, you're the woolens. You know what I mean. And then leave. You do know. You got to know. You'll hardly get out of earshot. Then you're going to hear a gunshot. And it's going to be one of them shooting at the other. And if you ask them, if you run back and say, what the hell happened? How can you fight over, part of you are now nylon people and the rest of you are the woolens. They go, am I going to have to make it up for you? They'll come up with something like, do you know what the philosophies of the nylon people are? And you might say, well, what do you mean philosophy? I just divide you up and I only got about a mile away. You've had 5 minutes. They couldn't have a philosophy. Could you? And you'd turn the nylon people who had just been shot at by the woolens. And say, you couldn't have made up a philosophy by now. Oh, yes. Well, the first thing about our philosophy is we don't like the hell being shot at. So right there. You can say, well, wait a minute. And you turn, well, don't have to go any further. But there is an ambivalence to life that I was going to suggest that the rest of you could pursue on your own, perhaps even more fruitfully than me coloring it in as far as I did. Of course, this is tied to another operational fact that I gave the examples really beforehand, but consider it this way. For optimum viability in the real sense of the word, not the just classic up-to-date California psychiatric Bible, but in supporting life, that it's going to have a chance of surviving, for the optimal viability, any new concept needs to create a maximum enthusiasm for both sides of the polarization. See, because any new concept, if it's going to be viable at all, if it's even going to be heard and remembered over 30 or 40 minutes, it is going to be polarized. State lotteries. I could use all sorts of things. The world is full of it. All you got to do is just open your ears. All you got to do is look around. 1990, I could use abortion, disarmament. But let's use state lotteries. That's something that some of you might be hearing this. There's some going on. There are other states fooling with it. As soon as somebody proposes, well, hey, why don't we have a state lottery? And I'm using it because it is something that has viability. It's not going away. It's only been in your lifetime, most of you, that state lotteries were an actuality in the United States. And now, I don't know, but I think a third or half the states have them. But in the states that don't, well, in the states that do, there's still a controversy, but in the states that do not, you should know, just on the news, every time it's proposed and somebody wants to do it, they're out in the streets, that it is a polarized, as it's supposed to be. It is a polarized enthusiasm. But that is the basic necessity. That is, if you know how to see it, that is the operational definition of a concept that has, if you don't like viability, we'll use Broadway terminology, it is a concept that has legs. Those of you that are showbiz. It means it'll survive. A play that has legs is a play that runs for a while, enough to get its money back and make a little profit for the backers. So a concept to have an idea of all sorts, a new philosophy, just a new concept. State lottery. Why don't we have a state lottery? And you can argue all day that people gamble anyway, and they're gambling in their homes, they're doing this and that, and why not run it by the state, and we'll take out a percentage of it, and everybody, the winners will make a profit, and then, of course, we'll take what the state makes, and we will do something great. Do away with poverty and ignorance. We'll increase education. That's it, education. Then, immediately, you're going to have people out in the street, writing letters, calling into radio shows. No. Oh, no. The enthusiasm on both sides are part of that beauty of efficiency, wherein the concepts that are going to prove to have legs have some survival rate that's noticeable. They are going to produce a double-edged enthusiasm. And it's only the ordinary intellect, as it's supposed to, that takes it seriously. That is, that points at the thing itself, like blaming the book because you're not enthused. It's all right. But it's like blaming the opposing, the polarized, the other aspect of the enthusiasm that anything, a viable concept, produces, such as lottery. Oh no, how can anybody do that? That is morally wrong. It says so right here in my Bible. My minister said so. My mother said so. That is not morally correct. How could anybody How could they believe? How can we have such stupid leaders? You don't see. You don't see the world's most beautiful. Oh, what a dumb sentence. The world's most beautiful Viva Machina. A beautiful, fine-tuned, living piece of machinery. That's how you know the concept has legs. That's how you know the concept is going somewhere. Now, not for ordinary intelligence. You can't say, well, wait a minute, it's not going anywhere because now here's a state over here that's had a lottery now for 10 years, and the educational limits, as by such and such tests, have gone down. It hasn't done anything. It costs them more to police the business in the revenue taken in by the lottery than they... Forget all that. I mean, if you're going to do that, which if you're ordinary you would, you're still looking at the thing specific instead of the process and saying, wait a minute, they said it would do so-and-so and it didn't. Don't look at that. What the concept said was, if this is going to go anywhere, it's going to produce two fountains of enthusiasm. What kind of damn nonsense is that? I'm telling you, this is not right. Do I have to say case closed? I just did the case. But as long as you look at the concept of, well, this is right or wrong, to the gods as man believed they would be, remember, or a god, there would be mortally typecast, indescribable. The only thing they would be asking would be enthusiasm. And so the God comes up with a new one. How about a lottery? How about a lottery? And he puts it out there, and suddenly his own little parts of those neural cells, known as humans, just immediately split. And it's like Moses is back again. He split the Red Sea right down the what? The FM. Not frequency modulation, the friggin' middle. He cut the Red Sea right down the middle, and as soon as I said, let's try this. How about abortion? How about laws against invasion of privacy? How about a lottery? How about, let's have one group prohibit the sale and consumption of alcohol. Life throws one out, and if he throws it out and the sea parts, just immediately he looks down Main Street, or whatever country it was, he comes up and says, let's try a lottery. And he looks down Main Street, Georgia, let's say. And suddenly, as soon as he says lottery, it moves down into humans, and he looks, and on the left side of Main Street, Georgia, is just out of nowhere. The streets are jammed with people waving banners and signs saying, down with the lottery. And on the east side of the street, are people hollering, lottery is the answer. Give the people the choice. Well, life knows the thing's got legs. Going to run. You don't have to read the reviews. This thing's going to run for a while. It's producing enthusiasm. It's only the participants at the ordinary level that look across the street and say, well, if they were listening to some of this, say, well, you can talk enthusiasm all you want to. The reason I'm a little passionate about this is because I am against the lottery, because it's immoral. And so, yeah, I'm a little worked up about it because God don't want us to have a lottery. Well, why did God holler, let's try this, lottery? And half the people went, no! And then, of course, the ones that go, no, holler, well, God don't want us to have one. Well, what did he do it for? They don't understand. In a sense, those who most rail against the injustice, the immorality of life, see, they don't even know it. They'd say, well, yes, we're God's little children, or we're doing the Lord's work, or we're serving some great cosmic force. Yeah. They got no idea how, yeah. I mean, if you ask them, they'll say, well, yeah, I'll be glad to tell you. You know, you don't have to tell me. Well, no, I hadn't even told you what sect I belong to. You don't have to. Well, wait a minute, you don't even know which God you don't know whether I'm talking about a Jewish or a Catholic or a Muslim God. You don't have to. Your enthusiasm tells it all. That's the whole point of it. No, you missed the point. You know, that's what I get for talking to ordinary people, see. If you're confronted with enthusiasm and you understand that enthusiasm is the primary requirement, a basic requirement of the primary world, then there's no way you're going to miss the point. Yeah, but you didn't read the book. Well, I don't have to read the book. Yeah, but I mean, I enjoyed it, and I recommend it, but you hadn't let me tell you anything about it. Well, you don't have to. Yeah, but you didn't know what it's about. I don't have to know what it's about. I know what you're about. I know what life is about. Yeah, but have you heard their new album? No. You got to hear it. Believe me, you've got to hear it. Well, I do believe you. I love it already. Well, don't put me on. You're being silly. I hadn't even told you. You don't even know what any of the songs are. Plus, I got a new drummer. Do you understand? All that may be all right. You might hear it. I might hear it to play the game that I set up. You go, yeah, I do like it. But that's not even the initial point. The initial point is how enthusiastic you are. Since we only got about 17 minutes, I guess I can afford to try and get a little more dicey. Since ordinary intelligence can only be enthused when it's confronted by a polarized concept, which is, to state the obvious once you see it. It's not that somebody has to think about it. If somebody does announce something, if life did, just for some reason with indigestion, made one guy stamp and holler, what I think we should do is everyone try and, around your own part of the world, paint the sky blue. I would suggest it'd get about that reaction. It'd be just like a passing, pardon my French, but like a passing burp in the night. It's got no viability. The concept does not produce polarization. How are you going to be for or against that? They're just silly, right? So the only enthusiasm that will be produced to ordinary intelligence is that which, from birth, the doctor stands back and he doesn't say it's a boy or a girl. He hollers, it's polarized. That's all it's got to be. Instead of the state of Georgia and Main Street, consider it's now a doctor. Instead of the Red Sea, it's a doctor. And the doctor gives birth. It is human intelligence. And he's got to look down and go, God, that's the world's ugliest baby. Because you have half the people go, you shouldn't say that. And you'd have half the other people go, you're right, I didn't want to say it. How'd that get too obscure? How'd I lose it? Everything that is born in the secondary world, if it's going to live, is polarized. It's going to produce two camps of enthusiasts. Those who are for it and those who are against it. That being the case, listen, here's this little sticky part. That being the case, do you understand that no ordinary person, no ordinary intelligence can be enthused about anything without it being enthused over a polarization? That being the case, do you understand what we've been pleased to call revolutionary intelligence or new intelligence would have to be enthused on a whole different level, a new mode. And the enthusiasm would be not over the polarization specifically. That is, that you've got to be aligned with, yes, I'm for this one. Or no, I'm not sure, but I oppose that. This kind of new mode of enthusiasm, a revolutionary enthusiasm would be that you're just enthused, if that would be still a word, and motivated by both poles. By the possibility of all new ideas and concepts. I told you it was sticky because there's no way to really describe it, but it'd be a doctor, an aspect, one part of life's body, stands back and it gives birth to a new concept, the lottery, a new religion. And you hear immediately, cries go up, boo, hiss, ugh, ugh. And you likewise hear the other side. The enthusiasm, that's what we've been waiting for. The world is saved. Oh, what fun we'll have now. The enthusiasm I refer to would not be in some way being tied to either one of those tar babies on either side of the street. It's the simply enthusiasm that, hey, there's a new guy in town. There's a new kid in town. A new concept. And you may not have any personal interest. You may not ever notice it again. It may be the fight now over, wait a minute, Warner Brothers. And we're not talking about any small time. Warner Brothers, brand new, the biggest promo of the year, going to come out in January for a new band, and it's known as, I don't know what they call it, Jewish heavy metal. And as soon as they announce it, the streets are full. The news is about people condemning it already. They don't know what the hell it is, but no. And another group hollering, yes, yes. And let us say that you had some form of revolutionary intelligence and you heard it. Your enthusiasm, let's say you don't even like music, much less got an interest in religion. Well, let's say that you're even tone deaf. You don't even care, but you would have a certain kind of enthusiasm just to know, there's a new guy in town. They've discovered a new Red Sea. There's a new form of lottery. That is, that it produces polarized enthusiasm, which is the only kind available. But your enthusiasm would be, it's good to know that life is still puttering right along. Do-dem-wah, do-dem-wah. That life is doing fine. As long as it can continue, night after night, that life can come up with, let's try lottery. Let's try having abortions by lottery. Well, let's, I guess you get it. How about this? You might find this of some interest along these lines, that although this is going on, and this is the way in which life must expand, must grow, must breathe in the secondary sense, the world of possessions, entertainment, everything that's at a bare minimum, if we're just speaking physically, of man just being an animal with no concept of an intellect, or as your mother and father talked about soul and spirit and all that, that at that kind of primary level. Anything beyond that requires enthusiasm, which of course is part, again, of why fashion is important, because fashion has to do with possessions. It's not just clothes, but all forms of possessions. Shopping, where they're not fashion and shopping. Not just clothes, it's not just an attack on women, it's not just an attack on men collecting tools. In the arts, in books, you would not have been, if you're really if your interest in possessions, your hobby was reading, in the books, we had nothing had been written since Balzac. Or they stopped writing and producing and publishing last week. Once you read everything available, you would no longer be enthusiastic. You'd go by the bookstore, and once you got there and it took you maybe a trip or two and you finally caught on, this is going to be it. There are 9 more books, and you've read them all, or you've read all that you like. The rest of them, if you hadn't read, you know you were not interested. Your enthusiasm would be... So fashion is what appears to be the variety in the secondary world. Beyond the fashion, beyond the enthusiasm needed, I was going to point out something else. As always, the double-barreled approach of life, a certain kind of... ambivalence is not really the word, but I guess that's operational enough to describe it. Is life, that is man's, continuing fascination for the dirty, hairy hero, the laconic, the dispassionate figure in the midst of enthusiasm. I picked on dirty, hairy. I assumed everybody at least seen one of those, but it's throughout history. Literature, it's everywhere, but right up to today, the figure is, when I say enthusiasm, that is, you've got this guy, or a John Wayne, or, that the town is just going berserk. Crime is rampant. Drunkards are going around. All kinds of weirdness going on. 14 guys are about to slap leather on the hero. And he seems to be indifferent. Well, of course, you know he's going to defend himself, to say the least. And chances are he's going to survive the movie. Chances are they're not. But it's these 14 guys been waiting for him to show up in town. And they're all behind buildings. They're running around, everybody, and they're giving signals. And he's, just got off his horse and walking down the street, or he's standing in the bar. And even the sheriff and some of the people, you got to watch it. You got to watch it. You know, they're out there. They're everywhere. And don't you know what's going on? And he said, give me a drink. And he said, there is a fascination. Now, it's not as widespread as the fascination for enthusiasm, and you've got to go into another scale. If we're talking about a movie, then there's the enthusiasm of people going to the movie to be enthused, and there might be some people that say, well, I don't particularly care for that kind of hero. There might be women say, well, the only reason I come here is my boyfriend takes me. Well, why do you put up with that? Because being around him enthuses me. He likes it. At any rate, there is this continuing partial attraction to that kind of dirty, hairy, outside, seemingly almost indifferent hero. But that alone won't do it, of course, because you're always dancing with the environment and vice versa, I plus not I. So it is, when I say indifference, of course, it is relative to the environment, to the setup of the movie or the play or the book, that amid enthusiasm, they're out there, they're going to kill you, they're waiting outside. They sent word, they're threatening you. Guy running the door and hollering, they're going to get you. And there's all this stuff going in the background. And they said, give me another drink. Don't you know when you go outside, they're waiting on you, says the bartender. I asked for a drink. Seemingly unenthusiastic amid uncontrolled enthusiasm. As far as if anybody's waiting for a great commentary on this, thankfully we're running out of time. Let me point out, or give you somewhere to start, that a part of this kind of attraction that humans feel they have, and I assume that all of you recognize the validity, in part, that I point out that this is not a limited anomaly. Find it in writings of Homer, you can find it in Shakespeare, you can find it in your own nervous system. Part of it, I was going to give you a verbal that you could go off on your own, is the ordinary the intelligence's incessant attraction to the unreachable past that in fact never was, with the inchoate future which any particular intelligence will never witness. Can I leave you hanging sometime? Think about it. The attraction, I've already pointed out, if you'll accept the, you might say the premise, that the secondary world of man, the world of the intellect, has got to be fed. It grows, it breathes, it develops through enthusiasm. And yet, is a part of life, a sizable segment, not just people, the same people all the time, but different people at different times have an attraction to a hero. That is a concept of someone not enthusiastic amid enthusiasm. It is life's irrepressible hunger for the unreachable past. It is not that far removed from the dreams of the garden, the fall from grace. You don't hear? At the time in which it was not required we be enthusiastic. God, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great if we didn't have to be enthusiastic? What you're dreaming of almost is a life, as I said, a past that not only is unreachable, it was actually a past that never was. The dream of the indifferent hero, the basis of it, the attraction of it, is the dream of the time when man was a primary creature with no secondary characteristics, with no secondary intelligence. But do you understand? He never was that. Oh, he was, but you can't remember it, because when he was that, he didn't have a secondary intelligence. He did not have intelligence to even be aware of it. And so you're dreaming of a past of the noble savage. You're dreaming of a past wherein I would not have the heartbreak, the pressure of what happens in the civilized world if I could just live like that. You never lived like that. Oh, yes, men did, let's say, but they didn't know it. And so it's a past that you can dream of, but you're dreaming of a past that didn't exist. Because when it did exist, you weren't dreaming. That is, humanity wasn't. So you're dreaming of that which you can never reach. No matter, you could have the time machine. You could dig up Wells. Not dig Wells, but dig up Mr. Wells and let him show you how to build that machine. And you could build the greatest time machine. I mean, you could get Toyota to help. And it'd take you back so far, but it wouldn't take you back to what you're dreaming of. Because if it took you back to the point that, all right, here is where the intellect first went, and had the first word. You can't go past that. Even if the machine would go past that, you wouldn't know it. So the dream of that kind of hero is literally unreachable. And of course, it is also tied to the future, like, well, this is beyond any analyzation, but also as the dirty Harry or the indifferent hero there amidst the enthusiasm, is also the dream on the other side that, hey, if I'd been built a better hand in life, or if I had some kind of great cosmic power, that's exactly the way I'd be. Maybe if I keep chanting and standing on my one foot and doing yoga and taking drugs, I got to expand into something good. But it's a future that any individual will never, that particular intelligence, anything that ordinary intelligence can dream of, cannot come to fruition. Because any dream is outside the one lifetime. That's why it's a dream. So the attraction to the dirty Harrys, the indifferent hero, the passive, the almost passive hero amidst the maelstrom of enthusiasm, in a sense, is a dream, a longing for a past. It's not only unreachable, but actually never was, combined with this insatiate attraction for what it would be to be such a hero, but the ordinary intelligence can never live to see such a dream come true, even if it's going to in some way become more of a reality to humanity in general. The individual at that ordinary level cannot experience it. 1 minute, also tied to that. I was going to point out, how about this, in case some of you think maybe you missed something. What is it when ordinary men, when they want to rebel, what is it they do? They withhold enthusiasm. The beatniks, being hip, being cool, are going past the 50s and the beatniks, the lost generation, going back to Homer. We'll always blame it on him. He was writing about it then. Men who really want to rebel, and of course we're really talking about it in a secondary sense, I could take it into more physical areas, but is men when they really like, let's show life, or hermits. Don't think you're missing something, you're just pointing out examples that the cities have already labeled, like the beat generations and being extremely hip and cool. When men want to rebel at life, they don't know what they're doing. But what do? They, without any exception, when they rebel, it's a form of that. It's a form of pouting, except it takes on the aspects of, and it can be described in ways that may sound better, like, well, he has a certain kind of intellectual arrogance, a certain kind of cultural haughtiness. And what the people are doing is withholding enthusiasm. Like, I ain't going to play. They can't analyze it. Oh, they can write books about it. They can come up with a whole, they can call it existentialism, or they can call it the beat philosophy. They can do all that, but what they're doing is this, is they're withholding enthusiasm. And they are correct. It never gets out of hand enough to disturb the balance of life, but in a sense, it's telling life, and gods. Because I'm saying if there were gods, as men want to describe them, what they expect is enthusiasm to keep it growing. So how better to tell them to don't be enthusiastic.